NASCAR officially revealed today its hotly anticipated 2021 schedule, and there are some surprises, both good and bad, on it. So in this video, we're going to take a look at each of the changes to the schedule and put them into categories: good, bad, or ugly. Actually, for the purposes of this video, we're actually going to not use the moniker good, bad, and ugly. We're actually going to use good, neutral, and bad. And the reason for that is I believe NASCAR's 2021 schedule is actually really pretty good. I would probably say on the low end, you could rank this a B+. I would probably lean much closer to an A-. They definitely missed a couple of things. There's definitely a couple of misses on this calendar. But for the most part, considering the restrictions and some of the outside forces that would have been influencing this particular calendar, I think that NASCAR did a great job to shake this thing up and give the fans a lot to talk about throughout the year. So like I said, we're going to break this down into 3 different categories, and I'll give you my thoughts on each of the changes. The first category, I figure, let's start with some positives. Let's talk about the good in the 2021 calendar. First change I think is really good is Homestead moving to the second race of the season, just behind the Daytona 500. I think this is good for a couple of reasons. Number one, I thought the date that they moved Homestead to in March wasn't very good this year. Obviously, we didn't really get to see how it played out due to the virus, but I think if you can't have Homestead as the season finale, I think having it the race after Daytona is really good from a momentum standpoint. Remember, Speed Weeks is really just 1 week in Daytona this week, at least when we're talking about the stock cars. So people who traditionally booked a 2-week vacation to experience all that's going on in Daytona, well, they can still do that and have their extra week in Florida, just heading over to Homestead for the second race of the season. I think this is a good move for NASCAR, and I think it will help both of those races attendance-wise. You move on to the second positive, which I think is Atlanta Motor Speedway getting 2 dates. Atlanta Motor Speedway, I thought for the longest time, was kind of the redheaded stepchild on the NASCAR calendar. It almost seemed like it was kind of thrown on the back burner and ignored a lot of the time. It was the second race after Daytona for quite a long time. It lost that spot only recently. And I remember there was talk that the race may not, or the track may not survive. So to kind of see this complete shift where now you have 2 events, one in March and one in July at Atlanta, and boy, oh boy, is that July race going to be hot unless it's under the lights. I hope it's under the lights, but boy, Atlanta is a track that's popular with the drivers, popular with the fans. It usually produces good racing, even with this 1.5 mile high downforce package that they're, I assume, planning on running, because they haven't said anything to the contrary. Now, why am I talking about not running the high downforce package at tracks? Well, it's the next positive I have on my list, which is Darlington, which is another track, another classic NASCAR track, which gets 2 dates back officially on the calendar. May 9th and September 5th. Those are actually the 2, I guess you could call them traditional Darlington dates. Those are usually when Darlington gets scheduled. They're on the calendar once again, both of those dates. But here's the big key here, is that not only is this something the fans have asked for, tracks like Darlington, tracks like Atlanta getting second dates rather than other tracks we'll talk about later in this video, but Steve O'Donnell announced today that Darlington, in addition to another race we'll talk about later in this video, is getting the low downforce package. So if you've seen kind of the Xfinity Series races, if you've seen a lot of the short track racing that the Cup Series has put on this year, that will be the package they'll be running at Darlington. It's a big thumbs up from me on that one. Speaking of low downforce, another track that's getting the low downforce treatment, and it's a brand new oval track. I guess you could call it a super speedway. It's really an intermediate 1.5 mile oval. Nashville Super Speedway. Concrete oval. Brand new to stock car, or NASCAR Cup Series competition. I almost said NASCAR competition, but that's not true because the Busch Series ran there. I'm excited for this event. I know some people are skeptical about it. I think NASCAR is moving in the right direction if the race is anticipated to be not as good. I think going low downforce is the right decision here versus going high downforce, because if the concrete surface isn't as good as you'd hope, or maybe Goodyear doesn't bring a good enough tire to be able to produce a good race there, you at least have low downforce, so hopefully some driver skill comes into it. That's a positive. I'm very excited to see what happens at Nashville Superspeedway. Major, big-time thumbs up here. Road America, July 4th weekend, Cup race. This is like the dream scenario. I think any fantasy schedule I ever made, any fantasy schedule that a lot of people made, has Road America on it for the Cup Series. I think it's the perfect track for the Cup Series. There's going to be amazing tailgating, amazing camping, so much space to spread out, so many different views to watch the cars race around that track. It's going to be bedlam. There are going to be people hanging out of the trees to watch that race. I certainly want to go. I don't know how that's going to work out with my schedule, but I've definitely got that race earmarked as one I want to see, because if you look at the Xfinity races there and how wild those have been, I imagine the Cup race will be just as wild. Or Chase Elliott will win by 20 seconds, whatever. One more positive note is the fact that Michigan, Dover, and New Hampshire, amongst a few other tracks, but those in particular, only have one date each. Not that I don't like those tracks, but certainly one of the things about the previous NASCAR calendars that I didn't like so much was going to tracks that were boring and not very exciting, generally speaking, twice. I think it really slowed down the season. It didn't give you that variety. It didn't give you that excitement, anticipation of what's next in the calendar. That's one thing that this calendar has done really, really good, is there's a lot of anticipation about what races are coming next. And if you have a boring race that you know is coming up, chances are that something new and or something exciting is coming the week after it. That, I think, will help NASCAR in the 2021 season with interest. Speaking of stuff that may not be quite as interesting or may be a bit of a question mark, this is the neutral category. These are the things I'm not super sold on yet, but they're also things that I don't think are bad or will be bad. They're just things that I'm unsure about. The first one is Circuit of the Americas on May 23rd. Now, what's interesting about this is that apparently Speedway Motorsports Inc., even though they were rumored to be buying the track, apparently that's not going to happen. But what they are doing is they're leasing the track so that they keep one of their Cup dates and get the revenue sharing from NASCAR for NASCAR to be able to go to a different track in Texas. Of course, Texas Motor Speedway also under SMI ownership. It's a bit of a weird situation there. Now, I think the racing at Circuit of the Americas is either going to be really, really good or it's going to be really, really bad. I don't think there's going to be an in-between. I do think the first year is probably going to be exciting regardless of what happens. My question mark, and my question mark with everything that happens at Circuit of the Americas, is longevity. And that's what a lot of this neutral stuff is going to be. Longevity. So do I think Circuit of the Americas is going to stick around on the calendar for a very long time? I think that remains to be seen. I think if you look at recent history with virtually every event that's not named Formula One, and even Formula One at this point, they didn't race there. They're not planning on racing at Circuit of the Americas this year. So pretty much every event that has happened at Circuit of the Americas has had at least a break, if not just an outright cancellation for one reason or another. Speaking of big changes, and I put this in the neutral category because, again, it could be good, it could be bad. The Indy Road Course on August 15th. Certainly, it's a big break in tradition. Indy is a traditional track, or it's a track that's built on tradition. The fact that the Brickyard 400 is not happening on the oval is certainly going to rub some people the wrong way. At the same time, I think a lot of people are fans of NASCAR's road racing product. So if the Cup Series can put on half of the show that the Xfinity Series was able to put on there, I think it's going to be an event that people really like. I do think the other thing that will help this event, at least in the short term, is the double-header event with IndyCar. Though I have pointed out in the other video where I talked about the Brickyard exclusively that they've run so many races, or will by the time we get to this race, they will have run 5 races at the Indy Road Course in 13 months. I think fans are probably going to get a little bit burned out of the IndyCar on the Indy Road Course product at that point. So that is one negative from the Indy cars joining them. Yes, it's special from the mixing pot perspective, but at the same time, it's a race that's fans will have seen 5 times in 13 months, if that makes sense. The final neutral, and it's only because we really haven't seen it play completely out the way it is that the chase is staying the same with the Daytona play-in race for the final race of the season. We haven't seen what a Phoenix finale looks like. If the Phoenix finale is good, this will move up into the good category. If the Phoenix finale sucks, this would move down to the bad category. Or if the rest of the chase is just boring or whatever. But the chase staying the same, the jury's out, is what I would say on that. Okay, the moment Reddit has been waiting for this entire time. The bad in this schedule. And the first thing I have to say is something that just broke on Jeff Gluck's Twitter about probably an hour ago as I'm recording this video, is that every event that is not the Daytona 500, Coke 600, the championship race at Phoenix, or the new tracks to the calendar will be one-day shows. Now, certainly there's a cost-saving element involved in that. I don't want to belittle that point. But at the same time, as a fan, I like practice and qualifying. I like having 2 or 3 days that I can spend at a racetrack. So if I choose to go to a NASCAR event, I would like to get a hotel for a couple of days, go and watch the race, enjoy a couple of days of racing, and enjoy the practice and qualifying. I like that stuff. Call me old school. What's, I guess, good is that the crown jewel events, at least at the Daytona 500 and the Coke 600, won't change. And the new events like Road America, you'll get your bang for your buck there. You'll get plenty of time with the cars on the track. So to me, it is a bad, and it's a path I would not like to see NASCAR continue down, but it's not as bad as it could be, I guess we'll put it that way. The Bristol Dirt Race. I've got this in the bad category. It's the first NASCAR Cup Series race on a dirt track since 1970. In and of itself, for that reason alone, it's cool. The reason it's in the bad category is I think expectations are going to be extremely, extremely high for this because it's brand new and because it's replacing the daytime spring Bristol race, which really was declining in attendance and interest. The problem is that I think this is going to be a complete crap show. I have a feeling that the Cup drivers are going to make a meal out of this because it's the first year and they haven't driven these cars on dirt. And I think the dirt racing segment of the racing world, which always has to hear from Cup drivers or Cup crew chiefs or NASCAR fans that Kyle Larson isn't doing anything special because he's beating a bunch of nobodies in dirt, will have a field day memeing the crap out of this when Brad Keselowski spins on a restart or something, coming to the green flag on one of the stage restarts. You know what I mean? So from that perspective, I think it'll probably be entertaining in the way the presidential debate was. I think it'll probably be a really entertaining bleep show. But if you're looking for a really hardcore sporting event, I'm personally not expecting that at the Cup dirt race at Bristol. I'm welcome to be wrong. I'll totally accept if I'm wrong on that. I don't think it's going to live up to expectations. Texas All-Star Race. I mean, I think you guys all know this. Texas Motor Speedway, unfortunately, isn't that exciting as a racetrack. I guess the one thing is that the All-Star Race has never really been that good, if we're being honest. It's disappointing. I think I would put this lower on the list simply because of the fact that it replaced Bristol, which in turn replaced Charlotte, which at least Charlotte had tradition going for it. Bristol Night Race or Bristol All-Star Race was something that at least the fans were excited about. I don't think the fans are excited about this. I don't know if the drivers are. I don't think it's going to be a very good show unless they do something absolutely insane, like do that weird like pack racing package that they did at Charlotte a couple of years ago. Maybe you could do something like that. I have no idea. But from that perspective, the Texas All-Star Race is a big meh for me. The final thing isn't really even to do with what's on the schedule, it's what's not on the schedule and the ramifications that ends up doing, which is essentially the way this schedule is worked out, it looks like Chicagoland, Route 66 Dragway, Kentucky Speedway, and Iowa Speedway are all kaput. And especially in the case of Iowa, Iowa did not deserve to die over this schedule. I'll just say that. It's very disappointing to see any racetrack go. I mean, I know people don't like Kentucky. I know some people don't like Chicagoland. But to me, I personally believe that every racetrack deserves a chance. There are people employed at those racetracks. There are fans of those racetracks. There are people who won't have a racetrack close to them anymore that used to have a racetrack. There are people who will have a drag, used to have a drag strip that they could go to on the weekends, will no longer have that drag strip. From that perspective, that's perhaps the biggest negative that I can point out from this whole schedule. The fact that there are tracks that have been affected by this negatively and are possibly going to get torn down for condos. That's unfortunate, in my opinion. But I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below about the whole 2021 schedule. Do you agree with my assessment? Do you disagree with my assessment? The discussion is what makes these videos interesting and what makes it worth making. Because if you're not making any discussion, why are you making the video in the first place? Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. We'll see you in the next video.